This morning, we've given you a sample of what the FreightWaves Live experience is all about. The idea of the FreightWaves Live experience is to bring you into the action, make you a part of the experience, letting you see how technology is going to shape the future of our industry. Now, I love the supply chain industry. I love logistics. I love the movement of product across the globe. That was much of the inspiration behind actually launching FreightWaves. 2 years ago, at Transparency 18, we launched SONAR, the world's first freight market dashboard. And the idea was to bring in real-time data across the entire freight market so that participants knew what was happening right then. We've then optimized that data to bring in data that has historical references of what's happening. So what we're able to do is combine both real-time monitoring of activity in the market with historical assessment data and historical transaction data. And what that does is it gives us a far more accurate forecast of what's happening in the market. And because this data comes from the contract market, it represents a much larger part of what's happening. In fact, what we've done is by taking in and tracking tender transactions, which are electronic load requests from shippers to carriers, we're able to see the contract market and how it's operating in real time. That is then fed into our artificial intelligence and algorithmic driven models to do spot rate forecast. And we launched that in November at FreightWaves Live in Chicago. Now, I think about how successful that product's been over the last couple of months. It has blown us away. Over 80% of SONAR customers are currently using our forecasted rates to make decisions on their freight. This helps them price more accurately. It helps them do and conduct bid strategy. And it helps them understand what's happening right now and what's going to happen over the next 12 months. Now, you don't have to know a ton about transportation logistics to know that over the last couple of months, we've seen a complete shift and massive volatility in the freight market. COVID-19 has been an unprecedented black swan event. And it's taken all of the historical models and completely blown them away. And the reason that that has happened is that this unprecedented event has created more distress on global supply chains than any event since World War II. We're talking about an event that has a dramatic impact on what's happening right now and what's going to happen in the future. No model has all of the information about what's happening in the future. But you have to have current data right now, because if you don't have current data of what's happening right now, then it's very difficult to actually understand what's going to happen in the future. And that's why the fastest data is the most important data. Now, what I'm about to show you is what we've been working on for the last couple of months. We've taken in our freight forecasting product, taken in feedback from what customers are actually doing and the decisions they're making, and trying to create a more actionable experience for the customers. SONAR customers are able to make decisions with data that comes from the contract market, direct transaction requests from shippers to carriers using tender data, and supplement that with historical rate data and historical market data. And because it's happening right now, and this data reflects what's happening right now, it does show how some of these supply chain impacts potentially will impact the future of the market. And I want to show you what we have been innovating over the last couple of months. We spent time with our shipper customers, we spent time with our carrier customers and our 3PL clients and said, what can we do to make your business more profitable? And the things that we found that were consistent across all of those universes is they wanted to know how they could make decisions on a lane-by-lane basis. And so I am very excited today to roll out something called SONAR Signals. Now, what sonar signals do is actually measure what's happening in the market and tell you exactly who has pricing power in the market. What this does is it takes in all of that real-time data that comes from tender requests, supplements it with market data from all of the other decision points that we get inside of Sonar, whether it's GL data or other market data, and it actually ranks each and every lane. Now, what we've done with signals is we've gone out and built a lane dashboard with it, which I'm going to show you in a second. But before I do, I actually want to show you how signals work. These signals basically measure what's happening at the origin level. In other words, what's happening at the market, or frankly, signals broadly measure what's happening at any market level. But what the signal does is it takes in all of that data that we have been assembling, whether it's tender request, tender volume, tender rejection, looks at length of haul, looks at all of those data points that you can get from a tender, and says what is actually happening right now and who has the power in the market. Now, if you've seen our DHL supply chain pricing power index, a lot of the methodology that's driven into that is similar to what we actually did inside these signals, but this is by a lane-by-lane basis. And I want to show you exactly how it works. So what Michael has done through our lane signal dashboard is actually pull up an origin to destination. Now, any origin and destination inside the system can be put, really any geocode. But what you can see here is in Atlanta, Michael, if you wouldn't mind going back, Atlanta to Philadelphia, we're getting a signal on each. Now, what you'll notice is this is shipper or carrier, because in the freight market, it is constantly an arm wrestling match on who actually has the pricing power, who has the ability to influence the market. And what we're seeing on this particular market is Atlanta's got a 38, which is closer to the shipper in terms of having some authority over the market than the carrier. And Philadelphia is a 36. Now, what that tells us is that really when it comes to pricing dynamics, the shippers are largely in control on this particular lane. Let's pull up another market, and I actually want to show you how this works. So any market, any geocode, it doesn't have to be the FreightWaves market specifically. It can be broadly anything. But we're pulling up Chattanooga, Tennessee to Seattle, Washington. And what this tells you is the local market score, which is a 31, and again, closer to a shipper, but your trucks are there. You already have a truck, so you're really in Chattanooga, you're dealing with the current market. And a load going to Seattle gives you a 24. It's an undesirable lane. When you think about that, the carrier knows that if they go into Seattle, the market conditions based on what's happening right now are not favorable to get a load that pays well, and frankly, even finding a load. A load is unlikely to be available with such a low score. But let's go look at a different market where perhaps conditions are better. So Eau Claire, Wisconsin actually looks much better than that load to Seattle. And here's the important thing. If you're running an asset-based trucking company, price isn't the single most important thing about your business. It's keeping the truck running. And because we have scored this based on an algorithmic-based criteria in terms of what's more important, this is a much better load for that carrier to take. So a choice between two loads would suggest that this particular market is, or this particular load is much better for the carrier. You know that the shipper has more pricing power out of the Chattanooga market, but compared to a load that goes to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, or Seattle, the Eau Claire, Wisconsin load wins the day. Now, I want to take you what else we built into this lane signal. What you see is today's rate on that lane. You see the week over week, the month over month, and the year over year. Now, what you'll notice is it's basically what the market conditions look like. And because of what happened during that March surge with COVID, we see that a month ago, this particular load would have paid $2.38. Now, You say, well, that's great. I understand where the rates were, but where are the rates headed? So we have brought our forecast actually into this. And what's really powerful about this is you're able to see where rates are up to 12 months. So we're showing you where spot rates are likely to head. So if this is a lane that you're going to be running on a consistent basis, then you know where the range on the low side, the medium, and the high are for those particular markets. Again, this is based on the contract market fundamentals. It does price in what happened in the spot market because it assesses or it forecasts that as well using assessment data, but it's actually based on actual tenders. And what's great about it is you can actually show a chart as well in addition to a table. So you can see it, but you can actually see how the chart works. And what's really nice about this is this high and this low is the range of potential answers. What's the range of the low, the mid, the high? Just go all the way forward, Michael, and you can see over the next month where those rates are. If we look at it on a year basis or a 6-month basis, you can actually see how this works and what the forecasted rates are over the next 6 months. A lot of variance. And so you can understand how you're pricing your freight more efficiently. And most importantly, you can figure out what particular loads to accept. Now, what we've also built in is information around fuel surcharge, so it's calculating that. It's frankly making your life easier. Now, as we continue to scale this, you see a lot of innovations come into our lane signal dashboard. You'll be able to see what's happening in the market right in front of you. And again, it's based on the assumption that people prefer stuff that's far more actionable and far more prescriptive in terms of what they're doing. One of the other things we've really built, and you'll see a lot of innovations around this, is what we call natural language. We're trying to translate the data that is built for very sophisticated quantitative measurements of the market and turn it into things that anybody can use. So when you think about deploying Sonar throughout your brokerage floor or perhaps in your operations center, historically it's been a product that is built for folks with really sophisticated analysis. What we're doing now is trying to leverage the ability to move it into the operations center. What you can see is in this particular lane, it's actually telling you all of the information that you need to know to make decisions about that particular market. Using natural language, you can actually see that inbound, in terms of the inbound haul score, which is really the reflection of inbound versus outbound, has climbed very steeply in the last week, suggesting that there is less capacity. You don't have to be a genius about trucking to know when there's less capacity in the market versus there are loads, that's a really good thing for pricing power and your chances to get loaded. And that's what we've tried to really focus on, is making this information very, very actionable and very, very logical in how you will operate your business. What you can see is information about Chattanooga. Remember, haul measures the balance of inbound versus outbound. Outbound tender rejection, which is a reflection on carriers' willingness to take those loads, has fallen moderately since a week ago. So just showing you the current conditions. Now, the assumption we made with this particular example was that the truck was already in Chattanooga, so you knew those market conditions. But what you want to know is, what is your pricing power? We're able to understand in this particular load, the shipper has more power than you do as a carrier. And that's all what Signals is based on. Now, one more thing that I'm really excited about. This is something we've never done before, but we get requests all the time. Third-party technology vendors and developers say, how can I get Sonar data into my platform? And until today, we didn't have a way to make that easy, and we didn't have a strategy on how to actually accomplish that. But what I'm really, really, really excited about is the fact that Signals are going to be available to any third-party developer. All you have to do is go on to the website, which will give you the information, where to go, fill out the form, and register as an approved vendor, as an approved partner, and you can have Signals for free. There's no cost. We're not charging for access to Signals. You can put them into your platform. You can put them into your rate analysis. You can put them into your load board. You can put them into your digital brokerage app. You can do whatever you want with them if you embed them into your system, because they're there to help make the market make more sense. And that's what we're really excited about. There'll be information that you can get access to on how this works that will be available on FreightWaves.com, as well as following this particular production. So, very excited about signals. I think it's going to change the way people think about freight. And I want to make one more thing very clear. This is not load board activity data. This is data that's driven by what happens between direct connections between carriers, or between shippers and carriers, the contracted relationships. And ultimately, what happens to the spot market is very influenced by what happened in the contract market. What happens in the contract market first is what actually impacts the direction of the spot market second. So I want to remind you that this data is coming from contractual relationships between shippers and carriers, and therefore it is far more reflective of decisions that will drive the rest of the market. And so the next thing I'm really excited to show is, if you're not aware yet that we've launched our own TV network called FreightWaves TV over the last year, you're probably aware of it right now. But what we've also tried to do is make the market make sense by not only bringing in video content and commentators to bring context to the market, but actually help use data to inform these decisions. And so what I'm actually excited about right now is to show you what we call mission control. What mission control is bringing the SONAR experience into a market dashboard. And the big idea with mission control is we're bringing the FreightWaves TV experience direct into your operational floors. And we're creating the opportunity to also have SONAR data and information directly on these big boards. And what we've actually learned sitting and looking at how customers are using SONAR is a lot of customers use SONAR as a large presentation screen to help provide floor-level analytics. And what I mean by this is we have seats or users inside of SONAR that are built for their operations center, just simply showing on the big screen. And we walk into brokerage floors throughout the United States and truckload carriers, as we see SONAR screens sitting on the big screens. And so we thought, why not bring it into that and give the opportunity for the data and the video to be available to customers. And what we're doing with this is taking FreightWaves TV and SONAR data and creating a single screen of awareness. The power of bringing real-time data with contextual video is now available to anyone, anywhere. In fact, you don't have to be a SONAR subscriber to get access to mission control. The data that empowers the SONAR mission control is driven by actual real-time SONAR data. So what happens in mission control is also in the platform. But what we've done is created a more comprehensive experience behind FreightWaves TV. Now, what's really cool about this is companies, brands, can actually custom label this product. What companies that are a part of the SONAR ecosystem can actually do is private label this. And so we've got an example of this. Our friends at JB Hunt have been kind enough to let us demo exactly what we're talking about here, where the Freight Insights are sponsored by JB Hunt. It's their color schema. Data is through SONAR. What you can see right here is we've actually embedded an ad. They can develop their own messaging. What's I think really exciting about it is if they wanted to deploy it into their terminal network and use this as a giant screen to talk about what issues they're dealing with or inform or information, they're able to do that. This is very similar if you've ever been into the large hotels or gone into a trading floor. You'll see these giant screens that have news and information, usually stock tickers or breaking news. What we did was we took those same concepts and put it into a freight-centric dashboard and screen. So with mission control, companies can actually deploy information that's relevant to freight and logistics that is not focused on all of the other things that are not specific to our industry. So we're very excited about it. This is available, both private label as well as just the generic branding. You can see FreightWaves TV right here. This is showing the freight forecasting, freight forecasting show that Michael Vincent is on, as well as the custom branding and data that comes from SONAR. Now, I want to thank you for tuning in to FreightWaves Live at Home. This has been an experience that has given us the opportunity to bring that FreightWaves Live party thought leadership directly into your homes and into your lives. We are touched by the outreach and support that you have given not only us as a company that's focused on transportation and information, but also what you have done for our industry. We're touched when other media outlets and folks that are not in logistics understand the importance of supply chain and logistics to the health and well-being of our country. As a father, as a husband, as a CEO, I want to personally thank logistics professionals for stepping up and doing what we do best, which is responding to crisis. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. It means a lot that you're here with us, and we hope that you continue with us for the next couple of days. You're going to see some really action-packed content, some of the deepest thinkers in our space, and some of the most influential people that are driving the future are going to be on display over the next couple of days, along with some of the most exciting technology.